and welcome to a new episode of TV POV. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Jen.
Let's get right into things. We've got some news to discuss and then a couple of new TV series.
Yes, to talk about.
So, starting off, as if there couldn't be any more comic book properties on television. Not that I'm complaining because I'm watching most of them. It was announced that, it was kind of teased back at TCA, but there weren't any firm details. Now there are a few more. It's a Flash Arrow type spin-off, and it's going to have Brandon Routh, Katie Lotz, Victor Garber, and Wentworth Miller, who are all known for characters that they've already played on one or the other of those shows, or in some cases both of them.
But except for Katie Lotz's character is dead.
Yeah.
Right, you don't think she's dead? She's gotta be dead, right? Maybe they just really like the actress and they want to bring her back in something.
Possibly, but there's also the whole thing with, in this universe, there's the Lazarus Pit. So it's possible that she could still be alive, but she'll have another identity since her sister's
is now the Black Canary.
Black Canary.
I think that's too many. That's too many superhero shows on the CW, in my opinion, especially from the same world. Like, it's ambitious, and I get it. They're kind of doing what Marvel does, spread across the movie universe and several other things. But the difference is there's a limited number of shows that the CW has in general. And now 3 of them, I mean, presuming this gets made, which I assume it will since the other 2 are doing so well, 3 of them are devoted to not just a superhero show, but the same universe with crossovers galore. And personally, I'd like to see a little bit more inventiveness on stuff like Jane the Virgin. And I know that the challenge is they have difficulty getting ratings for that stuff, even though they get critical acclaim for things like that. But when I read that, I was just like, it's one too many. I'm
gonna wait until I see a product to make a determination. Those are all, like, the characters, well, with the exception of Black Canary, they're all kind of cool characters.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like what they're doing with Brandon Routh on Arrow right now. Yes, especially that scene with Felicity that a lot of people did not like. I was a fan of. That's going to cause controversy.
It's temporary. Come on, it's temporary. Everyone can just relax.
I'm not for them forcing Oliver and Felicity together.
Some other news that we wanted to discuss, which is not the normal kind of news that we discuss, but we just have to mention it. And I think on the last episode that we posted, which was back in January, we were talking about Empire, and it hit big out of the gate.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about this is this show just keeps gaining more viewers every week, and a significant amount of viewers. Like, I think the second episode went up to 10 million, and it was like, oh, that's crazy. It's now up to 14 million viewers. That's insane. That doesn't happen.
I don't remember the last time anything like this happened.
No.
Like, not since maybe the 80s.
And not on network television,
or the 90s.
For sure. I mean, it's happened over time on stuff like Breaking Bad and even Walking Dead. But that's because, they're smaller networks. Not everyone has the chance to hear about it, and it gains word of mouth, like, after it comes back, after being on hiatus, through people watching it on Netflix or, downloading it or whatever that is.
Yeah.
This is like week to week, the ratings just keep going up. And usually a show premieres, if it's a hit show, it premieres to really high ratings, and it either stays that way or they peter off a little.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no stopping this show. Yeah. I think this really speaks to the fact that there's a really underserved African-American audience has been hungering for network television that sort of speaks to a larger cultural experience. That, I mean, this isn't really a stereotypical show by any means, but most of the entire cast is African-American, and it just sort of feels like there has been an audience who feels underserved out there that is suddenly coming in to watch this in droves, and then realizing it's good, and then watching it more and more.
See, I see it more that this is a throwback to, like, the 80s when there was appointment television with, your Dynasties and your Dallases and your Falcon Crests.
Yeah.
This is a soap opera that people are getting invested in, that people are talking about the next day. People are quoting, especially Cookie.
It's true.
And I think it goes even beyond that.
It does. I mean, there's a lot of factors at play, and I think it would be successful either way. But if you think about it, there really isn't anything else like that out there that is from that perspective.
Not this type of a caliber, not with characters that are so so developed. Like they're
really,
they're a little more.
I'll have to keep watching it, but I wasn't terribly impressed. I didn't think there was anything impressive about it.
It's gotten, and it gets better and better every episode as things go on, as you learn more about each of the characters, especially Cookie. When she comes in, like out of the gate, she's kind of like this,
over the top,
but she's still over the top.
But that's very Dynasty.
But there's context. There's context now, and there's a scene, not in the most recent episode, but the episode before that, where there's flashbacks to her in prison, and they were heartbreaking. They're so good.
Yeah.
So it started off with a bang and kind of like over the top, kind of superficial fun in a way, and then it's getting deeper and deeper every episode as you learn more about this family, as the drama like heats up between within the family, but also with rivals outside of Empire.
And the second piece of news that was related to Empire was a bit of drama gossip. Where Monique, who you'll remember won an Academy Award a couple of years ago, Best Supporting Actress from Precious. She's been caught making a lot of noise about this beef that she has with Lee Daniels, who is the director of Precious as well. So they had a working relationship. She's saying that she's been blackballed in Hollywood, which is I haven't heard that term since like the McCarthy era.
Well, I remember following after she won the award that there was some talk about her being difficult to work with, mainly because she was refusing to do press for the film unless she was getting paid for every appearance,
which is not
cool. Apparently she only earned $50,000 for her role, but I don't think anyone in that movie earned a large amount of money.
And you have to look at it long term. If she had won that Oscar with being in everyone's good graces, that would have afforded her tons of financial opportunities.
Yeah.
But it sounds like she kind of shot herself in the foot before that. So anyway, she's been saying that she was blackballed. She was saying that she was offered a role in The Butler, and then that he keeps offering or saying he has roles for her, and then going back on his word.
Yeah.
So she says that she was offered the role of Cookie Lyons, and that Lee Daniels told her that, oh, we're gonna have you come in and do a test reading just for show, like just for just routine. And then it was offered to Taraji P. Henson instead.
Then that apparently the network said they didn't want to work with her.
Yes.
Which was what else I read. I don't buy.
Well, no, Danny Strong, who's the co-creator along with Lee Daniels, came out publicly and said that isn't true, that Taraji P. Henson was always their first choice for the role. I don't think she's a bad actress. I don't think I would see her in that role necessarily.
No.
It's not really her wheelhouse. It's very odd that she's chosen to sort of make a big beef about it at this point. I doubt that it's true.
And if the show wasn't a success, I don't think we'd be hearing this story.
Well, no, I mean, no one ever bothers to cause a fuss when something isn't a success. But I highly doubt that that's true. So, but it was just kind of a bit of internet controversy this week. That's worth mentioning just because this show is such a massive hit.
Yeah. Netflix has announced their spring and summer premieres, which I'm very excited about.
Yes.
The first one that's coming in May, we don't have an exact date yet, is Between, which in Canada is going to be airing on Show Me, which is one of our other on-demand services, and on City TV, but at the same time, it's going to be airing on Netflix in the US and internationally.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty neat show. It's like a post-illness, everyone over a certain age dies, and all of the young people
we talked about that.
Yeah,
it's another way to look at the plague thing, which is really popular.
Which is it's kind of post-apocalyptic, but a really neat perspective, and made in Canada, which is kind of cool. And the first original production that Show Me has been a part of, which is kind of neat. So that's coming in May. June 5th, we've got Sense8 coming, which is the Wachowskis series that's going to be on Netflix.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, did you see Jupiter Ascending, which was the latest?
No.
That was bad. It was very, very bad. So, they've really, so far, they've proven to be a one-hit wonder. They really haven't done anything that I would consider to be good.
I never saw, what was the other one? Cloud Atlas?
Was that theirs?
I think
all I remember
Atlas
is
was them, which I didn't see.
Guys.
Oh, I didn't see that either.
So, they still have so much, they have so much respect because what The Matrix did was so amazing.
Yeah.
Despite the sequels being...
Well,
they made
the second
money.
one. I didn't like the third one.
Either way, it'd be very interesting to see what they do with this series. I like the concept, which I believe is loosely that there's 8 people all over the world who, after a traumatic incident, become emotionally connected to each other in a way that they can read each other's thoughts and feel each other's feelings. So I guess that's the sense 8. So I'm intrigued by the concept, but just a little skeptical because the last thing I saw from them, Channing Tatum had elf ears, and it was really bad.
We've also got the 3rd season of Orange is the New Black, which is June 12th, which I'm very excited for. And then in July is Wet Hot American Summer, July 17th, first day of camp.
Which we talked about before. I like to call What Is This and Why Is Everyone I Love in It? And I'm excited to find out the answer to that question on July 17th. We were talking about Show Me in their first original series, which is going to be on Netflix. And Crave TV, which is our other sort of on-demand service that's helmed by our other major cable network, Bell, has just announced that they're doing their first original series as well. And it's called Letterkenny. And it's by the guy who just won a Best Actor.
Yep, Jared Keeso.
For the show 19-2, which I haven't seen. And it's based on his web series as well, which was called Letterkenny Problems. And that's apparently super popular.
Yeah.
But the gist of the show is that it centers on a country boy named Wayne and his life on a farm in Letterkenny, Ontario. Now... is that a real place?
No, but Jared Keeso, and he talked about this.
I should know after Ontario.
After he won his award, he's from Listowel, Ontario, which is kind of like between Kitchener, London area, or between Kitchener and Lake Huron.
Okay.
And he's a small town boy. He's from a family that owns a sawmill, and he worked on this, in the sawmill most of his life until he decided he was going into acting. So it's definitely based on some personal experiences.
Yeah, just a fictional town that resembles real towns.
NBC has announced a new project that they're doing called The Reaper. And apparently it's a 6-hour miniseries that kind of has a bit of a American Sniper type feel to it. I hadn't heard about this until today. It was totally not on my radar.
But apparently there was a bidding war. I didn't hear about this bidding war, but
between networks.
Yeah, the fact that it landed at NBC was sort of a big deal because it's by the Weinsteins, and I guess the project had a lot of people who wanted it. Okay. So it is based on a book by another special ops sniper, much as American Sniper the movie was based on Chris Kyle's book. This is based on another guy's book. Called Nicholas Irving, and I think the twist is that the difference is that he was the first African American sniper in his battalion, and his nickname was the Reaper.
Oh wow!
So clearly, honestly, it's been in development for a while, but I always find this interesting because obviously it's coming out at the perfect time. American Sniper was nominated for all these Academy Awards, and this sounds like the miniseries version of that, to be honest. Yeah. There must have been something out there in development land where a bunch of producers were like, snipers. That's going to be the thing. We're all doing snipers.
I don't know if it's just me as a Canadian that I don't quite see the appeal. I guess it's something that hasn't really been discussed before. It's just not something in my wheelhouse.
I think it's a very interesting moral dilemma. There's a lot of really disturbing decisions you have to make as a sniper because you're the guy on the roof with that rifle who has a pretty decent accuracy rate of killing people, and you have to make all these decisions. And so I get that. How that plays in a 6-hour miniseries, I don't really know.
I'm also noticing that there are more and more miniseries.
which I love.
Which is kind of neat. And I mean, some of them are being picked up beyond the 6 episodes if they're successful.
Yeah.
That just happened recently with CBC, with X Company, which it just aired its 3rd episode.
Yeah.
It's a spy drama that's really, really good. World War II spies from more of a Canadian perspective. It's been doing really well, so they got 10 more episodes, which is fantastic. So it does happen.
Yeah.
I know they were, that Sci-Fi was hoping Ascension would do well, and then they would potentially...
And it didn't, did it?
I think it was kind of mixed.
barely
It
heard
did
anything
well.
about it, was
I think
it?
it's doing okay because it's just on now in Canada.
Right, yeah.
In the US, I'm not sure how it did because it was on at a weird time of the year.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. I think there's 2 sides to the miniseries story. I think some companies who are doing original programming don't necessarily want to take the risk of investing in an entire series off the bat. I think Sci-Fi would be among them, and certainly any Canadian broadcaster is among people not wanting to take risks with money. So I think that, like with X Company, you can clearly see that it could easily be a full series, but they wanted to take the shot with the 6, see how it did, go from there. I think with these ones, like this one that NBC's doing, I think it's probably more about the fact that networks are now open to these miniseries and the idea of not having to have that many episodes, which allows you to tell cool stories that are too big for movies, but would be ridiculously stretched out as an entire series. And that never used to happen in the past. It's like miniseries weren't really on anyone's radar.
And I see it more as it moving to like a more British model.
Right.
Which they never referred to them as a mini series.
No.
They just referred to them as a series, like 6, 8 episodes. And that works really well because they trim out all of that excess that you don't need.
They do, and the reason the States has not been behind that model for the most part is because it's not as much of a money-making model for them. It's less episodes, it means less stuff they can sell into syndication.
Yeah.
But the universe is changing so much that they're willing to open up to new avenues because they have different ways of selling them, and also there's now such a demand for content constantly that they can't just... Remember how you used to... You watch a series all year and it would repeat all summer.
Yep, exactly.
And you just watch it again.
There were new shows in the summer.
No, I mean, there were some...
I remember when 90210 had the summer season when they all worked at the beach club.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
That was a huge deal, and it messed up a lot of summer vacations. That we were traumatized. I was traumatized getting sent to Italy, and I was gonna miss the episode.
Why did you get sent to Italy?
I didn't.
Oh my God! Did you have a VCR?
It didn't have a program function. So I had to rely on someone to record them for me, and they didn't get recorded.
Oh man, that's rough.
It was traumatic.
Yeah, and then they started to have reality shows over the summer, and that started to be the thing, and now it's sort of pretty much year-round content.
Yeah. So we've got some casting to discuss.
Yes.
I know there was one that you were excited about.
Yeah, I mean, mine's a little nerdy. It's kind of a combination of 2 people from the 80s who were different ages and different, were kind of like nostalgic for me in different ways. So Rob Lowe and Fred Savage are going to be starring a series. So, you know, the teenage, St. Elmo's Fire guy, and then the cute little kid from...
Wonder Years.
Yeah, but also my favorite, The Wizard. And also Little Monsters. Does anyone remember?
I remember Little Monsters. I loved Little
Fred
Monsters.
Savage was like, so cute.
He's also the kid in The Princess Bride.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but I didn't watch that as a kid. I think I just missed it by a few. So, because I was like the same age as him, so I was like watching Little Monsters and The Wizard and being like, oh my God, he's so cute. And Rob Lowe was like too old, but like it was like him and Emilio Estevez were kind of like up there.
The Brat Pack.
Oh, those are the older hot guys. So, so it's 80s all around.
Yeah.
But they're going to be starring in this series together, and they're both playing lawyers.
Okay.
But Rob Lowe is a TV lawyer who has like a TV lawyer show. I guess it's probably like a version of Judge Judy or something like that.
Okay.
That's my guess when they say TV lawyer. Obviously it's not a fictional thing. He's playing
like
a
People's Court kind of thing.
And his show gets canceled, and then he moves back to his small town where he thinks he has enough experience to just take over the family law business. Whereas Fred Savage, his brother, is already living in that small town, a successful lawyer with a family kind of doing real law. So it's a comedy, and there's a little bit of a clash there.
Okay.
And this is for a Fox pilot.
Okay.
So it hasn't been picked up yet. So fingers crossed.
It sounds promising. The casting I'm excited about, and this might be a bit old for some people, but it's still worth discussing. 2 guest starring slots in Supergirl, which we've discussed a couple of times before. I read this last week and I think I squealed. I was on the bus and I was like, oh my god! Because not only do they have Dean Cain, who was Superman on Lois and Clark in the 90s, they've got Helen Slater, who was Supergirl in the 80s. My Supergirl.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my god, I love that they're doing this with these new DC properties.
Yeah.
When they cast John Wesley Shipp on The Flash, that was awesome. This is just, I mean, I'm excited for this project. I love the team behind it. I love all of the casting so far. Oh, with the exception of Calista Flockhart, because I've never really liked her.
I liked her Brothers and Sisters. So
okay, see, I've never watched Brothers and Sisters, and I did not like Ally McBeal. So
yeah.
So I'm really excited, and now I'm even more excited. Filming started this week, and we know that Helen Slater was on set this week because there was a picture tweeted by Melissa Benoist. I still need full confirmation on that. There was a picture tweeted with the 2 of them together, and I'm like, oh my god, 2 Supergirls. So I'm like super excited. We don't know what characters they're playing, who they are, but I'm really excited to see. So we've got a couple of new shows that we wanted to chat about.
Yes.
The first one is, well, not a new show, but a new season of an existing show.
Yeah, and you have to be living under a rock to not hear about the return of this one, because it comes all at once and it comes with a big bang and people lock all their doors, and it's the middle of winter, so it's easy. You want to stay on the weekend anyway and just watch it continuously.
And that would be the return of the Underwoods in House of Cards.
Yes, exactly. But we're not going to talk about the whole thing, because we realize that not everyone did lock their doors all weekend. Some people had places to be and maybe didn't get to watch the whole series. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to talk sort of about the beginning of the series, no further than episode 4. So you are fine if you've seen the first 4 episodes. Yes.
So what are your thoughts so far? We've got Frank Underwood as president.
Yes, which we saw at that was the pinnacle of the last season. Yeah. So he has made the ultimate power play.
Yeah, and he's not elected. He's just appointed. And Claire is the first lady, but not content with being just the first lady.
Yes.
So what are you thinking so far of this season?
Well, it's interesting because I feel as though there's a couple of things. I mean, it started off, like, the first 2 episodes, I think, were really strong. I was a little concerned with the fact that there's less behind the scenes dealing and more, I mean, all politics is somewhat behind the scenes. Yeah. But when I say behind the scenes, I mean like the kind of crazy stuff that he would pull on Walker last season, like sending them to marriage counseling and then releasing all the information. It's actually more political dealings, like with other people, with other countries. And so you don't get to see as much of that insane manipulation where you're just like, how is this guy pulling this off? How is he not getting arrested? He's really sort of battling Congress, and he's trying to pass bills, and yes, he does it in unorthodox ways and he steps on toes and things like that, but he isn't, out there like pushing people in front of trains. So there's, it almost feels like the West Wing if the president was a complete maniacal crazy person.
The one angle that I thought was kind of neat is him being pulled in and saying, we don't want you to run in the next election. We want someone else. We're not going to back you. And there's this big agenda he's trying to get played in. So he's doing some rather bold things, like, let's take away Social Security. And
did Democrats do that? That kind of, I was like, you're a Democrat. Democrats don't take away Social Security. That's a Republican thing to do.
Some of the stuff is like insane and no one would go for it, but it kind of makes sense. So this season I'm kind of getting the moves he's making. He's being he's being like kind of the ballsy leader that you know, like, I think with that and him pushing that through, also when there's the state visit.
It's a good choice of character. The Russian president is a very interesting guy.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't come right out and call him Vladimir Putin, but it's very obviously him. And throwing in that nice little cameo by Pussy Riot.
That was great.
I thought that was kind of
fun stuff.
That was kind of awesome, especially because they mentioned them earlier in the episode, and then at the dinner, I'm like, wait a second, is that them? And it totally is. Yeah. So the people that are writing this show are very much kind of giving their own commentary on. Yeah. To me, it's some of the moves he's making are like someone playing fantasy president. Yeah. Like if the president could tell the people off that he wants to tell off instead of being diplomatic. Yeah. If he could push through the policies he wants that he knows are good, but get stonewalled all the time. You know, this is kind of like, it's like fantasy president.
It is, yeah. It is.
He's just pissing on graves and busting up Jesus.
Right. Those are my favorite moments, actually, because it's like the only time he has to do something so devious that he's not telling anyone about. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you know, the relationship between him and Claire is shifting. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of interesting. You know, they've always been this strong team, although the weirdest team you can imagine. Yeah. But I think we're starting to see that she's having difficulty with the fact that she's still secondary to him. Yeah. Like, I think in theory, she realized they're making him president, and that would give her a position of power, but there isn't enough there for her to hold on to. And the type of power, like First Lady is you have to be a certain type of woman to care about that type of thing, you know, the way you look, the different types of meetings, you know, choosing
Easter
decorations.
Eggs.
Yeah. and that's not what Claire is about, you know, and so that's why she wanted to get into the UN, because she wanted something more significant than that, and she's finding that I think frustratingly, she can't do anything without his stamp of approval, because she doesn't have the clout that she thought that she would have in the position that she's in. And I think that could cause some tension between them.
Yeah, most definitely. But so far, I mean, I'm liking the season. It is a bit of a slow burn to start out.
Everything was leading up to being president, and now he's president, but it's such a short time that he has to be president, and he's like has crazy low approval ratings, and Congress doesn't even want him in that position. So now all his manipulations are going to have to be towards getting reelected.
Also, so many people that had helped him along the way that he's kind of thrown aside that are now siding with other people.
He's not good at dealing with his employees. And I have seen the whole thing. I won't give anything away, but I will say that does come into play a little bit, that attitude that he has towards the people that have made deals with him and helped him. I mean, yes, he's in charge, and yes, you know, when you make a deal with somebody, yes, they agree to it, and yes, they get something out of it, and so do you. But you still have to treat each other with a certain level of respect, and he's not very good at that. And that may become a serious problem for him.
Okay.
So there was another show that debuted this week, and it was a new show on Fox. This is a comedy written by Will Forte that has probably the least unlikely concept to make it to air of one that I've seen, and it's called The Last Man on Earth. And the concept is that there is this guy, and as you can imagine, he is the last man on Earth. So there's been some type of undescribed plague that wiped out everybody else, and the series picks up with him driving around in this bus looking for other people who were left on Earth, and he can't find anybody. So that's the concept of this series. Spoiler alert, you really have to watch the episode, because it turns out there is another person on Earth. Yeah. But not a man. There's one last woman. It was one last woman on Earth as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
It sounded like one of the most unlikely things, like you mentioned, like how the hell is this gonna work? But I heard several things from people that were like, this was actually really funny. So I watched the first two, and I liked it. I mean, I'm not in love with it, but I laughed. I was entertained. I don't think it would work if it was different casting.
I agree.
It's definitely Will Forte is that strong, and Kristen Schaal, who is the last woman on Earth, is that strong. It's kind of a fun. I don't know how they will sustain it, but to start, the idea of it, you know, driving into a store, or, you know, going to a bar and drinking everything around, and, you know, just like little things that you're like, you know, what if I was locked in a mall all night type ideas, you know?
Right, yeah. What happens is that it starts off with him being the last man on Earth and being desperate for more people. And then he meets another person who actually is on Earth. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe I have this person. And then it's almost like an odd couple dynamic where it's like, God, I wish she wasn't the last woman on Earth. Like, I would like to go back to a time when there were no other people.
And why are you moving into the house next door to me?
And it's love-hate, because, you know, you see moments where he's just like, I hate this woman, and yet I don't think he really would want to go back to a time when there was no other people, because it was desperate. I think it's ambitious. I think they did as good a job as they could do with it. It's coming from a generation which expects things to be like this, but it was so slow to me. I mean, there were very funny moments, but they were few and far between, and I was like, I can't just watch this guy bowl at lamps and fish tanks. And even when he got together with Kristen Schaal, it's just two people, and that's not enough for a comedy. I'm very big on the ensemble. I'm very big on the idea that a good comedy has more and more people, and when you start off with a small amount of people, it tends to grow beyond that too, to include more people. I mean, it's like how Steve Carell was sort of like the centerpiece of The Office, and then the show got stronger the more they decided to mine the other characters in The Office for more. So maybe they'll find other people, but at this point it's sort of like the last guy, the last girl, and they're gonna have to get married and populate the Earth, which is difficult because they're not really that fond of each other. The one thing that really I found hysterical was, you know, it starts to go through a period where you see him at the very beginning and he's traveling and looking for people. You don't know how long he's been doing it, but it hasn't been a crazy amount of time yet. Yeah. And he starts to go crazier and crazier. It's been over a period of about 2 years. So he's watching Castaway and going, this is ridiculous. Like, this situation, I'm not going to talk to a volleyball. You had it so wrong. And then you get to a point where he's in a bar, and not only is there a volleyball place, there's a ping pong ball, and
a basketball, and a football,
every ball you can imagine,
and a badminton birdie, and
every ball you can imagine has a face and a name, and he's hanging out at the bar with them, asking them if they want shots of whiskey, apologizing to Tom Hanks for not realizing that this is how it really would be, that they got it right.
Some of the things that come up, that instead of trying to figure out a way to get water in, he turns the pool into a toilet and he sits on the diving board. And that's kind of gross. And I love that at first, and Kristen Schaal's character, I can't remember either of the characters' names right now.
That's weird, eh?
Her character, at first she calls him out on it, and then next thing you see the house that she's moved into, she's turning the fountain in like the courtyard into a toilet. So it's like
they're gonna have to rub off on each other. That's the thing, is that he's kind of decided it's the end of the world, so his motto is literally everything is a parking space. She when he first meets her, she makes him stop at stop signs. She expects people to abide by the rules of the world, even though the world doesn't exist anymore. And he's just the complete opposite. So slowly she starts to come around on certain things through giving up, or for realizing maybe that, you know, like she gets that the toilet fountain came from a place of her like trying to get this water system working and going, screw it, I'm just gonna poop in my fountain. And yet at the same time he is starting to realize that maybe he could make more of an effort to like to try to build some type of life that isn't just throwing garbage everywhere. I just feel like the two of them aren't enough for me, and I can't see myself not needing more people.
I have a feeling there might be some others. There has to be more people introduced.
I hope so.
So, but then it's no longer.
I know.
It's going to be like another Cougar Town, where, you know, it starts off that she's dating younger men, and then it turns
into friends with bigger glasses of wine and older people.
Exactly. So I mean, I'll probably keep watching, just to see where it goes. I mean, I liked the first couple. And mainly because I do like the two actors.
I don't think I'll watch it again unless someone comes to me later and says there are more people.
So I'll keep you posted on that.
So I think that wraps our episode for this week. Please check us out on the web at
watchtvpov.com.
Absolutely. And we hope to have more segments up soon. You can catch the full episodes and hopefully some more segments on that site. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with more to talk about.
Take care.
Bye.